John Bachman's looking to play that organ right now. He's still here, and the man who has control, if not of the musical notes, but the numbers and the themes to basically every campaign in the country, Larry Sabato, Ph.D., from Charlottesville, Virginia, UVA's Center for Politics. Larry, thank you for joining us today.
Delighted to be with you. I can't sing a note, but I do math pretty well.
Well, that's very good, and we appreciate the fact that you can look to what was once a part of Virginia. I believe that changed in the war between the states. West Virginia specifically, where Democrat Natalie Tennant is running to try and succeed Democrat Jay Rockefeller. She has an interesting new ad out about coal and electricity. We're going to listen to that, and then, Larry, we'd like your comments on it.
I'll make sure President Obama gets the message.
So there it is. Talk about asserting one's independence, running on the same ticket as the president. Is this an effective way to distance Natalie Tennant from Barack Obama?
It's about all she can do. You also see the very same thing in next door Kentucky, where coal is also important, and the Democratic candidate, Allison Lundergan Grimes, is doing the very same thing. Now, why are they doing it? Because the president and his Democratic allies in Congress are now associated with, quote, anti-coal policies. Well, that's a killer. It's a killer in Southwest Virginia. It's a killer in West Virginia. It's a killer in Kentucky and any place where coal is being mined on a large scale.
Well, we see the situation in West Virginia. Let's go to another resource-rich state, and that's Alaska. Democrat Mark Begich is considered one of the most vulnerable incumbents in the country. The GOP primary there is August 19th, a three-way between Dan Sullivan, Lieutenant Governor Meade Treadwell, and Tea Party candidate Joe Miller. Who might emerge from that to face Begich?
Well, I think the likeliest nominee is Dan Sullivan. I'll tell you, though, this three-way contest has hurt the Republicans, as sometimes these intra-party contests do. Plus, Alaska has that late primary, the August primary. So I would have to say, as vulnerable as Begich is, he's been running one of the best Senate campaigns in America. And the Republicans are going to have to reunite quickly after their primary to really have a chance of taking him down.
Well, Larry, no one would accuse Democrat Mark Pryor of running one of the best campaigns in Arkansas right now. Republican nominee Tom Cotton, a very strong contender there. Pryor swept the state back in 2008 with 80% support, but it's not looking like he's going to have a very easy time this time around, especially with Obama's unpopularity.
That's correct. It's no better than a toss-up. Some people think it leans Republican. I don't know anybody outside the Democratic camp that thinks it leans Pryor. So that is one of the Republican Party's best pickup attempts against an incumbent. Remember, they've got 3 seats that they're going to pick up that are open, that are currently Democratic seats: West Virginia, South Dakota, and Montana. But if I had to look for an incumbent to lose, I would first look to Mark Pryor.
Well, let's go back out west, Larry, to Colorado. An interesting matchup there. Congressman Cory Gardner against Democrat Mark Udall. The polling I've seen right now, surprisingly to me, has Udall still ahead. Now, what's happened out there? Has Gardner, does he have too much of a conservative image in Colorado? What do you think's going to transpire in that campaign?
Udall is only slightly ahead. That's a highly competitive contest, and Cory Gardner was probably the best candidate the Republicans could have gotten for this race. Look, Colorado has changed. Obviously, it's gone from blue to purple. I think the whole election in November centers around the percentage of Hispanics who turn out to vote. If it's a relatively high percentage, then Democratic Governor Hickenlooper will win, and Senator Udall, another Democrat, will win. If the Hispanic percentage is lower in a midterm election, then Cory Gardner has a good chance to win, and Bob Beaupre, the Republican gubernatorial candidate, has a medium chance to win.
Well, Larry, one follow-up question on Colorado before we get to Georgia, and that is Colorado and Udall has really tried to make women's health an issue in this campaign, running a lot of ads already on women's health. How is that playing out in Colorado and elsewhere on the national stage?
You know, if Republicans could somehow drop social issues, and I realize that would be unpopular with many Republicans, but if they could drop social issues, they'd win a lot more elections. It's the social issues that tends to turn off young people and women, contraceptives, abortion, same-sex marriage.
Of course. And it's causing a problem, and Gardner's going to have to address that. One last question real quick with just about 2 minutes to go. My home state of Georgia, how do you see the race between David Perdue, the outsider, and Michelle Nunn, the self-proclaimed outsider, shaking out?
Well, my site, the Crystal Ball, is betting on Perdue. We don't see it as a landslide, but we think he'll win. Georgia is still fundamentally Republican, though, again, that state is changing.
And one other question, Larry, before we let you go. You touched on what was going on in Kentucky. You said that Allison Lundergan Grimes is doing a pretty good job with the coal question, as we talked about West Virginia. Can she beat the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell?
Well, she could. You know, his personal popularity ratings are awful. But again, we're betting on McConnell, and we have consistently, even when he was well behind her. And we bet on him because Kentucky is a conservative state where President Obama's approval ratings are in the low to mid 30s. How do you get a Democrat elected to the Senate when the leader of the party is that unpopular?
Larry Sabato, as always, we can tell you're a guy in demand. We heard the cue from your computer back there, and we know that you're a busy guy there at UVA. We thank you, as always, for your insights and analysis. Thanks for Skyping in from Charlottesville, and we look forward to our next visit.
I enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
So we heard from Larry, though Mitch McConnell's popularity may be down, the fact that he's a leader and he has some dough, he still thinks McConnell can prevail.
And one of the savviest politicians in Washington, no question about that. Nobody's questioning his ability here in this race, and Mitch McConnell, former candidate. We did hear, though, that Bill Clinton should be headed back to Kentucky very soon. But again, JD, no mention of President Obama going to Kentucky, Georgia, Colorado, and elsewhere. Well, and if he goes, like he went to Colorado, he doesn't meet with the actual candidate.
No, I think if he goes to any of those states, he'll probably just end up playing golf, or as we see in this video right here, shooting pool, as that happened on his last trip to Colorado. Time to talk about a new feature that's coming along here, and I get a kick out of this because I can just imagine if we were being billed for this time for legal advice, to have such a legal luminary as Alan Dershowitz offer advice to us. Well, we get it here for free. That's right, a new feature here on Newsmax TV. Alan Dershowitz, the noted criminal defense attorney, also the former Harvard Law School professor, with a segment entitled You and the Law.
Have you ever been stopped by a policeman for a traffic violation? Of course you have. Millions of Americans are regularly stopped by the police for traffic violations and other reasons. Now here's the question. Is it legal for you to surreptitiously hit the record button on your smartphone and tape the conversation with the police? Well, it all depends on which state you were stopped. If you were in about a dozen states like Massachusetts, California, or Florida, don't go near your record button. In Massachusetts, the top court has ruled that recording a policeman is a crime unless you tell the cop you're doing it. Many states have privacy laws that make secret recording of anyone illegal. And in some states, you're free to record the policeman in the exercise of their duty, but not to record other ordinary citizens. Illinois passed a draconian law saying that if you tape a police officer on the job, you could face as much as 15 years in prison. An appellate court overturned the law, and the Supreme Court upheld that specific ruling, but it failed to rule on the issue as a whole. The Massachusetts case was particularly egregious because the cops were spouting racist talk to an African-American driver who recorded the conversation to protect himself. Instead of the cop being fired, the victim of the racist talk was prosecuted. Bad decision, but it's still the law in that state. In 38 states like New York and Virginia, it's legal to turn on the record button, but don't do it. In general, I advise you not to, because if the policeman catches you, he might figure out some way of getting even. And don't forget that in almost all states, it's legal for the police to audio and videotape you. Many police, even on traffic stops, have microphones attached to their body and are recording your comments. In other places, the police have video on the hood of their car and they're recording your movements. So don't forget that fact and remember your state laws and act accordingly. I'm Alan Dershowitz for Newsmax TV.